Let's start with Into the Dead, Our Darkest Days. You know when you dive into a zombie game and you're bracing yourself for the same old storylines and tropes? Forget that here. This game takes a bold step in a completely fresh direction. Our Darkest Days puts you in the middle of Texas during the early days of a zombie apocalypse, and it's a side-scrolling survival game. I know, a 2D perspective might make you think it's limited in scope, but the way this game builds tension, atmosphere, and stakes with that view is absolutely genius. The gameplay is survival-focused, which means scavenging for supplies, managing resources, and making tough decisions. And I do mean tough. The game doesn't hold your hand, and that's what makes it so satisfying. Every choice you make feels significant, whether it's deciding which supplies to grab or what risks to take. There's this constant weight to your actions. What's brilliant, though, is how the game nails this balance between challenge and accessibility. It's not overwhelming, but it's not forgiving either. You'll have moments where you're barely scraping by, and then something clicks, an item you find or a plan that works, and you feel like a total genius. It's that kind of gameplay loop that keeps you coming back for more. The game doesn't just throw zombies at you, it throws moral dilemmas and emotional punches. Whether you're a fan of survival games, love a gripping story, or just want something fresh in the zombie genre, this game is an absolute must-play. Trust me. Next we have Deliver Us the Moon. It's a narrative-driven sci-fi thriller that's all about saving humanity. The Earth is in trouble, resources are gone, and humanity is on the brink. So naturally, what do? We look to the stars, and in this case, the moon. You're tasked with uncovering the mystery of a lunar base that's gone dark and figuring out what happened to a mission that was supposed to save the planet. Sounds simple, right? But let me tell you, it's anything but. You'll be fixing systems, figuring out how to progress through different areas, and piecing together what happened. It's more about problem solving than combat. And honestly, that's refreshing. Not every game needs to have an explosion every 5 minutes to keep you hooked. One thing I love is how interactive everything feels. You're not just running through corridors or pressing buttons at random. You're actually operating machinery, aligning satellites, and repairing systems in ways that feel grounded and realistic. It's immersive, and it keeps you engaged from start to finish. The game also does an amazing job of making you feel the stakes. Sure, it's set in space, but the issues it tackles, climate change, resource depletion, and humanity's survival, feel incredibly relevant. It's not just a game about saving the moon or even saving humanity. It's about making you think about how we got to this point and what we can do to prevent it. Another great thing? It's not overly long. You can experience the entire journey in a handful of hours, which means it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a tightly crafted experience that respects your time. Next we have A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead. You know how the movies had us holding our breath and watching every little sound? Well, this game captures that same heart-pounding tension and somehow makes it even more immersive. It's like stepping into the world of A Quiet Place. Only this time, you're the one who has to survive the silence. What's immediately striking about the game is how it makes sound, or the lack of it, a core part of the experience. Most games thrive on big, bombastic action and booming soundtracks, but here, silence is your lifeline. Every step, every interaction, every decision you make revolves around avoiding noise. It's a fresh, nerve-wracking twist on survival gameplay that really keeps you on your toes. But what makes this game truly special is how it puts you in the driver's seat. It's not just about running or hiding. It's about making smart choices. Do you risk making noise to get what you need, or do you take the long, silent route and hope for the best? Every decision feels weighty, because one wrong move could mean a very bad day. The gameplay strikes a great balance between exploration, stealth, and survival. It's not a straightforward horror game where you're just trying to outrun the monsters. It's about living in this world, figuring out how to survive, and maybe even thrive. The stealth mechanics are intuitive and satisfying, and every successful sneak feels like a little victory. The game keeps you engaged by mixing up the challenges. Sometimes you're solving environmental puzzles. Other times, you're desperately trying to avoid making a sound while danger lurks nearby. Next we have Death's Door. This isn't just another action-adventure game. It's a journey filled with quirky humor, unexpected beauty, and a story that hits all the right notes without overwhelming you. Plus, you get to play as a crow. Yes, a sword-wielding, tiny, feathery reaper. And honestly, that's reason enough to dive in. You're a crow working as a reaper for the Bureaucratic Commission of Death. Your job is to collect souls, but As you can imagine, things don't go quite as planned. The result? You're thrust into a mysterious world full of danger, intrigue, and plenty of darkly comedic moments. And despite the game's title, the tone is never too heavy. It strikes this perfect balance between melancholy and whimsy. The combat is tight, responsive, and wonderfully satisfying. You'll be slashing, dodging, and casting spells in a rhythm that feels smooth and natural. It's not overly complicated, but that's what makes it so fun. You can focus on the flow of the fight without being bogged down by mechanics. And the enemies? Oh, they're as creative as they are challenging. Each encounter feels different, with unique attack patterns that keep you on your toes. It's never frustrating, though. It's the kind of challenge that makes you want to jump back in and try again. Boss battles, in particular, are a highlight. They're big, bold, and beautifully designed, but they also feel fair. Every victory feels earned, and every defeat feels like a lesson learned. The pacing of the game is just right, too. It never feels like it's dragging, and it never overwhelms you with too much at once. Next we have LEGO Horizon Adventures. Imagine the post-apocalyptic wilderness of the Horizon series, with its towering robotic creatures and breathtaking landscapes rebuilt brick by brick in LEGO form. You'll still find yourself scavenging parts, crafting tools, and taking down massive machines. But with that signature LEGO twist, everything is accessible and lighthearted, which makes it great for all ages. Combat is surprisingly dynamic for a LEGO game. Sure, it's not as intense as in the main Horizon games, but there's strategy involved. You'll need to target specific parts of machines, use different weapons, and think on your feet during battles. The LEGO style softens the edge of combat, making it more fun than nerve-wracking, but it still has a satisfying sense of challenge. Plus, when machines explode into a shower of colorful bricks, pure joy. What really stands out is how the game blends the two worlds so seamlessly. On one hand, you've got the epic scale of Horizon, with its stunning vistas and awe-inspiring machines. On the other hand, there's that classic LEGO vibe, where nothing is too serious, and everything is just a little bit silly. The result? A game that feels massive and intimate at the same time. And then there's the customization. LEGO games always deliver when it comes to letting you tinker with characters and builds, and LEGO Horizon Adventures is no exception. You can create your own custom machines, outfit characters with all kinds of gear, and even tweak the environment in fun ways. It's all about creativity and giving you the tools to play the way you want. Next we have Ashen. Instead of hyper-realistic graphics, Ashen goes for a minimalist art style, with soft, muted tones and faceless characters. And guess what? It works perfectly. At its core, Ashen is an action RPG, with a heavy focus on exploration and combat. The combat feels deliberate. You can't just run in swinging wildly. You'll need to time your attacks, manage your stamina, and learn your enemies' patterns. It's challenging, but fair. And every victory feels like a genuine accomplishment. The enemies are varied, and can be pretty intimidating, so staying alert is key. The exploration is where Ashen really shines. The world is vast and interconnected, filled with secrets to uncover and places to discover. It has that "I wonder what's over there" feeling, and the game rewards your curiosity. You'll stumble across hidden paths, find helpful items, and meet fascinating characters. It's the kind of world that invites you to get lost in it, in the best way possible. Speaking of characters, the NPCs in Ashen aren't just background dressing. They're an integral part of your journey. As you progress, you'll recruit allies who will help you rebuild a settlement that serves as your hub. It's incredibly satisfying to see your home grow and thrive as you complete quests and build relationships with these characters. They have their own stories, and while the game doesn't hit you over the head with exposition, it gives you just enough to feel connected to them. One of the most impressive things about Ashen is how well it balances difficulty with accessibility. Next we have RoboQuest. If you're a fan of fast-paced action, explosive gameplay, and robots, lots and lots of robots, this game is going to steal your heart. It's one of those games that doesn't take itself too seriously, but delivers an experience so polished and addictive. So, what is RoboQuest all about? Well, it's a roguelite first-person shooter that's all about blasting your way through waves of enemies while exploring vibrant, ever-changing levels. But it's not just your average run and gun. Oh no, this game has style. The art direction is this fantastic mix of cel-shaded visuals and neon-soaked sci-fi goodness that makes every explosion and every laser beam feel extra satisfying. Right from the get-go, the game grabs you with its high-energy vibe. You're thrown into these sprawling, colorful levels filled with robots ready to take you down. And the pace? It's lightning fast. You'll be jumping, sliding, dodging, and shooting all at once. It's chaotic in the best possible way, and the game encourages you to keep moving. The weapons in RoboQuest are a highlight. There's an insane variety of them, from traditional blasters and rifles to some truly wacky, over-the-top creations. And the roguelite aspect of the game really shines here. Every time you jump into a new run, the levels, enemies, and loot are randomized. This means no two runs are the same, keeping the gameplay fresh and exciting. Sure, you're going to fail a few times, that's part of the fun, but every failure comes with progress. If you love fast-paced shooters, this is for you. Next, we have Nightingale. Without giving too much away, Nightingale is set in an alternate Victorian-inspired universe where portals connect you to countless magical realms. These aren't just ordinary portals either. Each one opens up a unique, handcrafted world full of surprises. Whether it's dense forests, eerie swamps, or towering mountains, every realm feels like a whole new adventure waiting to happen. At its heart, Nightingale is a survival game. But it's so much more than that. Sure, you'll be gathering resources, crafting tools, and building shelters, but it never feels repetitive or grindy. The game constantly rewards your curiosity. Wander off the beaten path, and you might stumble upon a hidden ruin, a bizarre creature, or a resource you didn't even know existed. You'll face all kinds of strange and otherworldly beings, from towering giants to mischievous fairies. Each encounter feels unique, and sometimes running is just as valid an option as fighting. There's this constant sense of tension and wonder as you explore, never quite knowing what's around the next corner. One of the coolest aspects of the game is the crafting system. It's deep, but not overwhelming, which is a hard balance to strike. You can craft everything from tools and weapons to elaborate structures. And let me tell you, building in this game is a treat. The structures you can create aren't just functional, they're gorgeous. Whether you're putting together a humble cabin or a sprawling Victorian estate, it always feels satisfying and personal. Next we have RoboCop Rogue City. This game doesn't just let you step into RoboCop's metallic boots, it puts you smack in the middle of a dystopian Detroit, where crime is rampant, and justice is served with a firm robotic hand. And trust me, it's a blast. Playing as this half-man, half-machine powerhouse feels exactly how you'd hope. He's methodical, intimidating, and an unstoppable force of justice. The game does an excellent job of making you feel like an armored tank, but not in a way that makes things too easy. Sure, you're powerful, but you're not invincible, and that balance keeps the gameplay engaging. Speaking of gameplay, it's a mix of first-person shooting, exploration, and some light detective work. The combat is where the game truly shines. RoboCop's iconic Auto 9 pistol feels as powerful as it looks, and taking down waves of criminals with pinpoint accuracy is incredibly satisfying. The game leans into that slow, deliberate pacing that comes with being a walking tank. You're not sprinting or diving into cover like in other shooters. Instead, you're stomping forward, taking calculated shots, and soaking up damage like a futuristic juggernaut. It's a refreshing change of pace that feels distinctly RoboCop. The enemies are varied enough to keep you on your toes, from low-level thugs to more heavily armed foes. It also gives you moments to slow down and dig into the world around you. There are side missions and investigations that let you flex RoboCop's detective abilities. Next, we have Steel Rising. You're in Paris during the French Revolution, but not the one you learned about in history class. This version is darker, deadlier, and full of automatons gone rogue. Paris is your playground here. The game does an amazing job of making the city feel both expansive and dense with detail. You'll find hidden paths, shortcuts, and plenty of secrets, if you're curious enough to look for them. The game also throws in a nice mix of enemy types to keep you on your toes. The automatons you face aren't just mindless machines. They're beautifully designed and wildly varied. From towering, tank-like bots to nimble, agile opponents, each enemy feels distinct, and figuring out how to take them down is part of the fun. Customization is another highlight. Aegis isn't just a one-size-fits-all character. You get to tailor her abilities, weapons, and gear to suit your playstyle. Want to focus on raw power and smash everything in your path? Go for it. Prefer speed and precision? You've got options. The game rewards experimentation, so don't be afraid to mix things up. One of the coolest aspects of Steel Rising is how it combines its historical setting with its mechanical madness. You'll meet reimagined historical figures and uncover a story that's both engaging and just the right amount of weird. It's not your typical historical narrative, but that's what makes it so compelling. Now, if you're worried about the difficulty, Don't be. While Steel Rising does take inspiration from challenging action RPGs, it's a bit more forgiving.